Lisa,
Yes, baby girl.
when I grow up, I want to be a woman to society.
Then so shall you be.
Hey, this is Lisa Landry. Welcome to Menace to Society. I have the distinction of speaking today to my good friend and comedian up in Fairbanks, Alaska, Ms. Julie Jo Johnson.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Julie Jo. And Julie Jo is not just an aspiring comedian up there. She's also a mom and a CO.
A correctional officer, that's right, and a guard at the jail.
She's like Edie Falco on Oz.
Oh, much less sex.
Oh, really? Well, you're in a women's prison, right?
No, we're about 10% women, 90% men.
How does that work?
We have the females housed on one end of the jail. Our jail's actually had a couple of expansions since it was built in the mid-60s. And so the females are housed in 2 dorms. We have about 40 females. Our population stays between 20 and 40 females and between 200 and 300 guys.
It's just like the Alaska ratio, isn't it? 9 men to every chick.
Pretty much.
Y'all are some very stable folk. You keep everything in its proportion.
Yes, and the people that I house in the jail tend to procreate with one another, so they keep their own gene pool in there.
Oh, you mean like the female and the male get back out and they make a jail baby and then come back to prison?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes.
Do you think, I know you don't speak for the state of Alaska, and I know you don't speak for the jail that you work at or any of that stuff, and I know you're not a spokesperson for your union, but do you think a lot of that has to do with just the way that they were raised and that environment, that family pattern of this is what happens?
Absolutely. Well, I think we're dealing with a couple of distinct issues up here, one of which is the indigenous culture, which was basically invaded and almost obliterated. You know, that only happened 150, 200 years ago. So we're still dealing with the fallout from that, where we've introduced alcohol, we've introduced processed sugar, we've introduced dairy into diets of a culture that never had that before. Mm-hmm. And Christianity also came in. The Russians brought it first, and then Euro-Americans, where we said, okay, you can't do the things you were doing. You can't respect the land like you used to because we need to use it for its resources. You can't respect the animals like you used to because we need to eat them. You can't run your family unit the way you used to because God says no. So when you couple that with the addiction issues with the sugars and the alcohol, it created a perfect storm up here for criminal behavior. People don't have the accountability that they would have otherwise because they can blame addiction. They can say it's culture confusion. And so that's pretty much what we've got going on up here. And now, of course, heroin.
Y'all have heroin there?
A lot of heroin.
See, I didn't know that. I always think of Alaska as a green state, even though you're red, because so many people smoke up there.
Oh, no, lots of heroin. I know it's confusing because we don't have that many skinny people, but heroin is huge here right now because it's cheap. And it's easy, and now that they have opened the market for marijuana, the prices have actually gone up. I mean, people used to just be able to grow their own pot at home, and nobody really said anything about it, and it wasn't that big of a deal. If you were dumb enough to drive around with it in your car, then you got popped and you went to jail, or it was like a misconduct involving a controlled substance in the 6th degree, which is slightly less severe than driving without your seatbelt.
Okay.
So when they opened up the market for marijuana, it created a value for people to actually profit openly, and it's gotten more expensive. Heroin is cheaper than pot right now.
Yeah, I did go to one of your dispensaries because, it's totally legal there. Disclaimer, but it is. I went to the grass station. I think I paid like $18 a gram or something crazy.
Yeah, and we're going from a community where people used to just grow their own in their homes, and nobody really bothered them about it. Unless the police came to your home for something else and found enough to be commercially viable, you didn't have a problem. Yeah, I have not been in any of the dispensaries because of my job.
Right.
We do have to follow all federal laws.
Right.
As well. We house federal prisoners in the state system because we're the only, they don't have a federal containment up here.
Why? Why not? Y'all just don't have the population to support it?
Yeah, that's a federal money decision. I'm not really sure. We do have marshals here. We do have an FBI office here. But their prisoners are housed. They pay us to house their prisoners. So we sign a little thing every year that says, I will follow all municipal, state, and federal laws.
Right.
And when the marijuana vote came up, we got many, many heavy reminders of that. And of course, because
Hey, don't forget.
we do get random drug tests and stuff like that. So, and it's fine. I've got other stuff to spend my money on. I have a shoe habit.
Dance classes for the daughter.
Yes.
That kind of
but
stuff.
I could tell you that if they actually allowed marijuana in the jail, my job would be a lot easier.
Because your cell people, what do you call them, criminals? What do you call them?
Inmates.
I don't like that word.
Well, the whole thing is you can't really call somebody a criminal unless they've been convicted of a crime, and we actually are a pretrial facility too.
Really?
So then they would be alleged criminals.
So you have all kinds of people staying there. It's like a Motel
Correct.
6. You got people of various classifications housed in kind of one campus?
We do house them by classification, so we do not have your garden variety shoplifter housed with Max murderer who beat his family to death. They are housed separately, but they do mix at church, yoga class, stuff like that.
You were telling me, I want to get to the yoga class because you and I kind of talked about that briefly when I was up there. Why would it be easier for you, do you think, if we had marijuana in that prison?
One of the sayings that COs use a lot up here is nobody's ever smoked a bowl and beat the crap out of their spouse. People are relaxed. They kick back, Give somebody gets stoned, give them a bag of Cheetos and sit them in front of a copy of Pink Floyd The Wall. They'll be fine. Not a lot of fighting. And growing up in a marijuana culture, that's how it was too,
Yeah.
I grew up with people that smoked constantly. The most nonviolent people you'd ever meet in your life.
Yeah, I've been up there and hung out with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's my personal opinion that, if we just allowed marijuana and medical cannabinoids into the jail system, that, it would be a lot calmer. We wouldn't have the fights. I'm not sure about smoking so much just because of all the crap that comes along with that. I believe that if you want to indulge in cannabis, you should find a way other than smoking to do it just because of the damage it does to your lungs.
Got it.
Not to mention the secondhand smoke, but,
The cannabinoids, too, it seems, I'm no authority, but it does seem to have more beneficial properties.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to get high. You can take the THC out of the equation and just completely medicinal purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge proponent for medical marijuana all the way.
Yeah.
And having had friends that have dealt with severe cancers and seen the benefit that it's done them, and I can't say enough about it. And I wish that they would introduce it into our system, because we do, based on the nature of what I do, which is house people in a jail, we get people who have lived very, very rough lives, have not taken care of themselves medically. And to say to a person, yes, we will pay for your medical treatment, but we won't allow you adequate pain relief or this alternative treatment for your disease seems counterproductive to me.
Tell me about that yoga system that y'all are putting in place up there.
I am the recreational officer at the jail, which means basically I just supervise inmates at recess. And after having been a correctional officer in the facility I'm at for 10 years, I finally got that coveted position, which was great for me because I am a single mom and the hours are much different than a traditional correctional officer schedule. When I started, we just did the normal stuff, basketball indoor all winter, and then they'd be outside playing catch with Nerf footballs or whatever during the summer. And there was a need for specific targeted programs. One of the previous COs who had done recreation had introduced the Insanity workout, a Beachbody workout, had purchased it for the jail, and had run it sporadically. And so one of the things when I became a CO was the male inmates came to me and said, can we do this every day? Will you commit to this every day? We really, really want to do it.
The Insanity?
Yeah.
Okay.
As that came about and the inmates saw they could count on me to fulfill that promise, that I was going to put their wishes first. If they came to rec and they worked out and they sweated and they committed to that workout, I would be open to committing to more programs for them. They were willing to take on the responsibility to complete the program. I'd be willing to give it to them. We have a writing instructor who comes in. She teaches creative writing. And as I had come across Yoga Behind Bars, which is a state program in Washington, this lady contacted our programs department and said, hey, I'm a certified yoga instructor and your females are saying they want yoga. So we kind of passed each other like on a 4-lane freeway, you know, and finally got connected, and she's coming in. She teaches right now 1 class to females, 1 class to males. I purchased yoga equipment. So they've got mats and blocks, and we're starting yoga, and the response is overwhelming by the inmates. I only have room for 20 people in a class, and out of the 200 and some male inmates I have over 100 interested in the yoga class. So we're going to have to add more. One of the things that Yoga Behind Bars, which you can read about at yogabehindbars.org, has shown is that recentering the inmate mind, whether they're dealing with addiction, whether they're dealing with guilt from their alleged crime, whether they're dealing with boredom, whatever it is, recentering their whole spiritual being, basically, which is what yoga does, reduces recidivism. And it helps deal with conflicts in jail. There just wasn't a downside to adding yoga. And while Washington State doesn't outsource their program, they do welcome outside teachers to come and learn from them and take their training, and our yoga instructor will be doing that in January.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I could not be happier. It's just, and she's a volunteer. She's not being paid. She's doing this out of the kindness of her heart and the betterment for her community. Because, like I said, there's no downside to introducing this into the jail. And when I have over half the inmates in the jail willing to commit to the program, that's huge. I'm interested to see what the impact is going to be on our inmate population that suffers from fetal alcohol syndrome. I believe that yoga and fetal alcohol syndrome together is a hugely unmapped category. I think it's going to be incredibly beneficial. Impulse control is a very, very big problem with those on the spectrum. And I think this is going to help. I really do. I believe it in my gut. So I can't wait to do some research on it and write about it and really see what happens.
Is fetal alcohol syndrome prevalent there in that community?
It's huge. It's absolutely huge. 60% of the people in our system, DOC is the largest mental health care provider in the state of Alaska. And then we've got, and that's about 60% of our inmates are actually dual diagnosis, so addiction and mental illness. FASD falls under that whole dual diagnosis. They don't really have a different category for it within DOC, but it is huge. And when you've got 2 or 3 generations of people in jail together, which is also common in Fairbanks, we will have the grandfather, the father, and the son.
Oh, God, that's so sad.
The grandfather, the mother, and the daughter all in together. You can see, and like, I grew up here. I'm 5th generation Alaskan, and you know it when you see it. Unfortunately, for a lot of families here in Fairbanks, especially families who've adopted, the symptoms won't manifest until adolescence. And by then, it's kind of too late. You can't really do a whole lot with that impulse control. So we're hoping that yoga will. We're hoping that will help remap some of those impulse control issues.
Well, no, there's a school in California. I don't remember what the name of it is, but I remember reading a while back about how they were doing meditation with the kids, and the kids all started making better grades and just acting calmer and more confidently.
I can't see any downside to it. And basically, incarceration, at least in this setting for sure, and I believe across the nation, does not work. It just doesn't work. We need to do something else. And whether it's pumping out certified yoga instructors, which is what I eventually hope to do, and get these people decent jobs. You shouldn't get out of jail with nothing and have to work in fast food. It's humiliating. There really isn't a downside to it. If you've got something to turn to that helps you and can help other people, then you've got a tool when you're leaving incarceration or leaving high school or leaving whatever to help you on your journey.
Do you think that because you work for a state prison and it's not for profit, that your prison tries to rehabilitate people?
Our whole system is going programs friendly. It's been a swing in the past 12 years since I've worked there that is definitely more programs friendly, more rehabilitation. It's in our mission statement that we rehabilitate in a respectful environment. We have a lack of qualified people to run those programs, and I believe we're trying to rehabilitate people in areas that aren't necessarily prone to rehabilitation, like sex offenders.
I think that's kind of a lost cause, isn't it? I mean,
I'm not aware of any effective sex offender rehabilitation that's out there. If there is one, I'm not aware of it. But we pour money into a program at one of our prisons where we send most of our sex offenders so they may rehabilitate. The federal government also has a sex offender rehabilitation program within the Bureau of Prisons. We definitely are trying. We have vocational programs. And I do think because it's not for profit that is something that we are expected to do. That's something the community expects of us. That's something that the families of victims expect of us. That, when you put somebody in there, they're fixed when they come out. That's the whole idea behind prison. It is not removing the bad people and keeping them locked away forever.
well, yeah, because that's not going to happen. Eventually, these people are going to have paid their dues, done their time, and they're going to be released.
Correct. And it's my personal belief, and the way I do my job reflects that they need to make big changes while they're in there. They need to change their mindset. They need to have plans like they've never had. They need to think about other people like they never have. An inmate needs to figure out what their place in society is going to be before they get back out. They can't just take class after class after class and walk out the door to the same crap they were in before they walked out.
They need a strategy.
Before they came in.
But that's got to be hard if you're going back to a family that has all these other issues at play.
It's impossible when you go back to the same people. It's impossible. I don't know of a single inmate who has gone back to the same people doing the same stuff and succeeded. But I do hear all the time from inmates, I went out to help my mom and she got me high and blah, 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 blah. I hear that all the time when they come back.
Yeah, a lot of crabs want to pull you back into that bucket.
Well, yeah.
And there is
especially if you're making money for them.
Right. Yeah. Family business or doing better. I grew up in the country, and there seemed to be a lot of people who didn't want the newer generation to do better than the past one. That makes any sense?
And I don't understand.
And I'm not saying all country people are like that, but I do find it to be kind of a jealousy of like, you're not going to do better than I did, because then that would mean that I didn't accomplish my goals. So you won't either.
And all I can think when I look at my little girl is, I hope to God you do a lot better than me, because you might have to pay for my existence.
Right. That's your retirement plan, huh?
Pretty much.
Baby girl better go to college. How do you think we can change the stigma that society places on people who have done their time? Like, once they're released, what do you think we can do?
I think one of the major things that we can do is get parents involved in parenting their children while they're in jail. I think it needs to be a nationwide push for that. I did get to see a pilot program in action in Colorado once, where they actually had the parents who had jobs and wanted to join this parenting program. They put aside part of their money so they could give it as an allowance to their kids. Their kids came to the jail twice a week to get help with their homework.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, they teleconferenced in on parent-teacher conferences, all that kind of. They got to parent in jail. I think that's huge. I think when you alienate a parent from parenting, you're hurting the child, and you're creating a future inmate, basically. So I think that that's a huge thing we need to do. And I also think that we need to make that community service that happen in the jail, and bring the communities into the jails so that they can see the benefit of that. There is absolutely no reason that envelopes can't be stuffed and clerical work can't be done. And we've got all these people housed in jails that have all these different strengths, and we have all these needs out in the communities for different tasks to be done to help those that can't help themselves. There's no reason we can't bring those into the jails and let the people who are sitting there playing Xbox and watching TV and talking on the phone have some pride in what they're doing and have a purpose to get out of bed in the morning. Give them something to do that helps other people.
What percentage of your female inmates, just listening to their stories over the years, are in there because they made a bad decision based on what a man wanted them to do?
95.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's kind of
There's to hang on to a man, almost always a man that wasn't, well, always a man that wasn't worth it.
yeah. Do you think?
Or because of trauma from a man. I would venture to say over 75% of our females have been sexually assaulted.
Yeah, PTSD ain't nothing to mess with.
I believe that the number says somewhere around 50 to 60%, but you know it's higher than that. Not everyone admits it.
I believe it's higher than that too.
Not everybody remembers it.
Right.
So yeah, that's a huge thing.
Yeah, I think that's often glossed over in our society. You know, how many of these women were actually kind of semi-powerless or abused? Not powerless meaning, you know, you didn't have to jump off the bridge because Bobby told you to. But you know, if a guy's you're living with is beating you or threatening to do something to your family or your kids that maybe you didn't have with him, how much control do you really have over what you're doing?
No, exactly. If someone's using your child as a bargaining chip, you go crazy. And I can't believe that that is actually not a criminal defense. Your child being used as a bargaining chip creates a temporary insanity, whether it be your child's safety, your child's health, that phone call to OCS, you know, any of those things. It does. It makes you a little nuts.
Yeah.
Having gone through a custody thing and feeling threatened, I get that. You know, but I mean, we're dealing with people who a lot of times have almost nothing, and the only thing that they've invested money in is a roof over their kid's head or food in their kid's belly. And then they're threatened with losing that. That's a desperation, the likes of which I have not experienced. Could it drive me to be criminal? I think it could drive any parent to be criminal.
Well, I don't think the maternal instinct is actually recognized outside of, like, you know, women talking, or maybe like as a plot device in a film. But I don't think it's recognized in this society that a lot of mothers don't actually have a voice in their own home.
That is true.
And that can reflect badly upon you in court.
You know, this is the same society that says, you know, a mom can lift a car off of her kid. You know, she has that much strength. Why doesn't that society trust that that strength can carry us through to do what's right for our children?
Well, that's the patriarchy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a huge double standard.
It's a huge double standard, but it's affecting a lot of women. I understand that females are the greatest growing prison population. Maybe not
well,
there.
You've got
but...
a lot of female addicts. You've got women who have been, you know, sexual trafficking is a huge, huge problem still in this country. It's actually growing in Alaska, if you can believe it.
I'm hearing that. I'm hearing that there's more slavery and sex trafficking now than ever.
Well, and I have been very active in the Seroptimus, which is an international female civic group, and sexual trafficking is their big hot button issue. And what happens here is men will go to villages, they'll get females hooked on drugs or alcohol, will spirit them away from their families and their village and everything they've known, and take them to a metropolitan area such as Fairbanks or Anchorage or Seattle, where they're completely isolated, and then sell them off. And it happens every day. And you know, to place the responsibility on a 14-year-old who doesn't even know what she's doing and say, well, that's the life she chose to live. No, nobody chooses that. You know, it's time to start cracking down on parents who aren't paying attention, because in a small village, when somebody new comes in, you know, and it's time to start cracking down on these criminals. I mean, that's what they are. They are setting out to commit a crime. They're setting out to exploit people, young women and young men. And when we have things like SB 91, which we call the bill up here, which is geared towards criminals, they say it's geared towards reducing recidivism, and it was supposed to empty out our jails, go figure that, where it just made the punishments for many crimes less severe. That's not sending the right message. It's not, especially for people who commit crimes like this and then say it's a nonviolent crime because they didn't actually hit anyone. Sexual trafficking is a hugely violent crime.
Are they saying that's nonviolent now?
Yes.
Who decided that? Voters?
No, it's the way that legislators have. It's also there's a great article, I'll have to send it to you, about how the first sex abuse of a minor isn't considered a sex crime or a violent crime the way that SB 91 is written.
Who the hell wrote that?
White Christian males.
How the heck do you say that that's even halfway rational?
I don't know if it was an attempt to appear less racist against our indigenous population, which has a huge presence in the sexual abuse of a minor sort of world here, or what, but it was definitely a loophole that they're planning on closing with SB 54 if it ever comes to fruition. But this is what we're dealing with right now. Anybody who commits a sex abuse against a minor for the first time before a new bill is passed will more than likely not serve jail time.
So if you want to rape a kid, now's your chance. You know, your opportunity is in place until sanity takes a hold?
Correct.
In theory, though, because, I mean, pedophiles aren't usually caught.
And I think that we are finally getting to a point where realizing that people who victimize children are going to continue to victimize children. You know, the judicial system will eventually get there. They'll kick in. And the laws and the sentencing guidelines are going to have to follow. But this was a huge setback in that.
When did that pass? Do you happen to remember?
SB 91 happened about a year ago. One of the first things that happened, the court system, in an effort to lighten their workload once SB 91 kicked in, is kicking in all these different phases, was they said that anybody who comes in on a non-domestic violence misdemeanor is an automatic OR, as long as they're not on probation. So we book most of our misdemeanors in and then straight back out. We process them in and out. They never actually set foot in a real cell. They don't get housed. So it's just like if they bailed, but they bail for free.
So wait, let me understand this. If you rape a child right now and you're caught raping that child, which would be a nonviolent offense in according to this legislation, you don't even go to jail?
I'm not really sure how far the contact has to be. I'm pretty sure full-on rape, no. But sexual contact, one of the classes of sexual abuse of a minor, will now not have any penalty.
I'm telling you, this America is no nation for women or children.
No. And, thank God somebody caught it, and they're trying to fix this loophole. But in the meantime, anybody who is incarcerated for this crime, their sentencing guidelines are going to be reflected that this loophole is here. Because your sentencing depends on when the crime was committed or when you were found guilty, one or the other. And I believe in cases like this, it's when the crime was committed.
Well, that's devastating.
It is. So SB 54 is definitely one to keep an eye on, and I will send you that article that just horrified me. I was just like, what? This whole SB 91 was a huge mistake. And law enforcement officials, corrections officials, all of us who work directly with offenders are horrified at what has happened. We have seen a couple of success stories. We've got a couple inmates who call themselves the face of SB 91, who are out and who are successful and would not have had the chances that they've had without SB 91. But on the other hand, if an inmate comes in too drunk to care for themselves and they have not committed a crime, they can be committed under what's called Title 47. So if they have nowhere else to go, they can come to jail for 12-hour sleep-off. If somebody is just as drunk as that person who is in for 12-hour sleep-off, commits a DUI and they come in, a DUI, first DUI misdemeanor, they're going to walk right back out that door just as drunk as they were when they were driving. And as happened on New Year's Day last year, a beautiful young woman was arrested for DUI in the parking lot of the bar that we actually just performed comedy in together.
Uh-huh.
She was stuck. She wasn't even technically driving. She was stuck in the snow, was arrested for DUI, came to jail, was processed in, processed out, and was hit by a car and killed at the intersection nearest to the jail when she was leaving. She was the daughter of a CO, one of my colleagues.
Gosh.
And a very close family friend. And we have done nothing to change anything since then.
Because what, you think it just gets written off as like a freak accident or,
Apparently, well, she was responsible for what she was doing. No, she wasn't.
Oh, she got what she deserved. She got what she...
The law says she's not responsible.
Yeah.
The law says she's not responsible. Did the officers have an ethical obligation to contact her parents? Had the officers that were worked with her father like I have for the past 12 years? Then yes, they probably would have called, but they're on the complete opposite rotation, only knew him in passing, hadn't really worked with him, and when she said, don't let my parents know, they listened to her. Who else listens to a drunk 21-year-old, ever? That's ridiculous.
Because she wasn't technically breaking a law because she wasn't driving.
Right.
Ouch.
So things move slowly. They change slowly. Hopefully they will change for the better. But that blows my mind that you can be too drunk to responsibly drive, but you're perfectly okay to sign all of your legal paperwork stating that you'll appear in court and be held legally responsible for that, even though you're not okay to drive, and then go on your merry way and make good choices.
Yeah, that's really sad.
It's infuriating.
This was going to be a funny podcast, girl, and it's just...
I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's a subject matter, I guess. And I guess it upsets me, too, to think about these are humans, Like, they're not just numbers. They're not just nameless statistics. Right. These are actual human beings who... But at least you're going to get them yoga.
They're going to get yoga, and then I have started a program where inmates are going to be manufacturing fleece blankets for our youth shelter, which is called The Door. It's run by Fairbanks Youth Advocates, and they have a real need for fleece blankets for their clients. Sometimes when they leave the door, that blanket is the only thing that kid will own. And I asked them, hey, what can my inmates do for you? And they said, fleece blankets, please. So I am seeding this project with a couple hundred of my own money and soliciting donations from all of the fabric suppliers. And we're going to start making fleece blankets for the teens at the door. So the inmates are going to have a community service project where they can feel like they're giving back. And in some cases, it's their kids that are coming into that place. So they can feel a little more connected.
So you're like a social worker / CO / mama / comedian.
Pretty much. You forgot Foodie.
Oh, I did forget Foodie. I'm sorry. Where were my manners? How can people donate if they wanted to donate to y'all putting those fleece blankets together?
The best way to do that would be to send gift certificates for Joann's Fabrics. That's the only chain we have up here that sells fabric, so that we can go purchase the supplies we need. We need cuts of fleece that are at least 2 yards, which are bulky and hard to mail. So Joann's gift certificates would be the way to go. And either send them to me personally or send them to the jail. The address is on the State of Alaska website, which is alaska.gov.
Oh, we'll find that and we'll put a link up for you. And I'm going to try to find that article, too, that you were talking about and put that on the site as well.
Okay. Absolutely.
I wish we had some more jokes in this podcast because I know that you're very funny and I try to make people laugh, but I don't know.
It's a pretty serious subject. It is, so I get it. I mean, we've talked about sex abuse and we've talked about correctional reform and judicial reform.
Hey, how about some dick jokes?
Aren't all dicks a joke, really?
Hey.
She says as my 5-year-old is here in front of me, trying not to make noise. She's being so good.
Oh, she's such a cutie. How is my wonderful Miss Allison today?
Oh, your wonderful Miss Allison has started kissing the toilet paper before she wipes because she wants her butt to feel some love.
Are you sure that's not my child?
There she goes. Love, love, love. She's my little hippie.
You need to send her to me. I will teach her to make granola.
Oh, dear God. She does not like granola.
I will fix that for you.
Aunt Lisa says she wants to feed you granola. Do you want steak? There we go. She'll eat steak. Sorry, your days of being a vegan are over, my love.
Alaska. Alaska.
Although I did have a smoked salmon and a baked potato for dinner last night, and I thought of you.
Aww. Delicious. That's so Alaska.
And it wasn't just because of the fishy smell.
Oh, we got one joke in, and it was at my expense, and I'm okay with that.
That's awesome.
All right, please kiss that baby girl for me.
I will.
And thank you for all the good work you're doing, Julie Jo.
Well, thank you so much for being a bright and shining light and a comedy mentor for me. Mentoress.
Mentress. Menses. I think that's what my tiara says.
I love you so much, Lisa.
I love you too, baby. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, babe. Well, thank you, Julie Jo Johnson, the most cuddliest, warmest, friendliest, non-dope smoking CO you'll ever meet. And thank you to everybody listening. Please go to my website, lisalandry.com, where you can sign up for my newsletter and get a free audio download. Special shout out to Ari. I want you to meet Julie Jo, but not at work.